Hello guys, welcome to Francis 4. This will be a different type of video, but I wanted to share how my husband, Ty, and I created a rock climbing wall for our son. It was his 4th birthday coming up, and all he asked for really was a bunk bed. We ended up getting a loft bed, but I wanted to add a little more to his room, and so we decided to do a rock climbing wall. And so some of the things that I think, I'll drop all of the things that you will need to create this. If you are inspired by this and want to give it a shot, I will put just check the description box for the things that you will need for it. But the first thing that we did, of course, was use a stud finder to find the studs in that wall that we were going to put the rock climbing wall on. And so that's what you'll see us doing. We actually also got the 2x4s and kind of just laid them out, took a look at where they would go, measured things out just to make sure that everything was coming out the way that we needed it to. And so we did that. And then once we were settled on where the plywood or the 2x4s needed to go, we then started nailing them into the studs in the wall. As far as the 2x4s, you want to make sure that you get your measurements correctly. We had the top ones and then we had the bottom ones, and so with that, we just had to make sure that the inside 2x4s were going to fit perfectly. And then of course we had 3 or 4 going across, 2 at the top and the bottom, and that's what gave us our frame for the wall. Of course, I still had to do a little happy dance just to see that frame coming along together. After that, we took our plywood and we wanted to just make sure that it was measuring out correctly before we started doing any work on it. So, of course, that took a trip upstairs and a trip back downstairs with the plywood. But hey, when you want to do it right, that's what it will take. So we got that squared away, and then I of course wanted to paint the plywood, and I sanded it and just put some paint on there. I believe the paint that I used for that, it was kind of like an interior door paint. I believe it was some paint that I think we already had this paint, and so I just used what we had, knowing that most of it was going to be covered by the climbing holes anyway. So that's what I'm doing now, just painting the plywood before we move into drilling the holes for the climbing holes. Okay, so next we are just laying out the climbing holes. I got these from Amazon. I will put the link in the box for you. These seem to be some pretty good holes. Got, the different colors for them. And so what I'm doing is just laying them out how I would want them to be on the board, just to kind of get an idea. Now, I want to make sure to note something. When you put these holes on, before you do that, please mark on your plywood where the 2x4s are, because you're going to take this board and you're going to put it and have to nail it to the 2x4s. What the mistake for us was we put the climbing holes down too low, that they were right on top of where we needed to put a hole in the wall for the 2x4s. So just a note, make sure that you mark on the plywood where the 2x4s are, because you will of course need to nail the plywood into the 2x4s, the frame. So just make sure, wherever you put the climbing holes, that you put them in the right place for that. So with the climbing holes as well, something that I learned from someone else on YouTube was to, of course, mark where you mark and circle, I guess, the inside of the holes. Go ahead and do use a pencil and just mark your holes inside there. That'll make it easy to know just where you need to drill. And also take a picture. This came in handy because you have the holes on there, but then you have to take them off so that you can put put the holes in the plywood. So make sure you take a picture as well. That way you'll know where to place them after you drill the holes in the plywood. So now my husband is just drilling the holes, the markings that we made with the pencil, and he's going in and just putting all the holes in the plywood. And what I'm doing is just kind of getting some of the extra sawdust and all of that stuff off. Make sure you use the proper equipment. I had a glove on to kind of just scrape some of that stuff off as he was drilling the holes in the plywood. So what we're doing now, we are flipping over the plywood, and as you can see from just the holes, it kind of leaves all this loose wood, and so of course you want to remove all of that, those hard pieces, and make sure you use the right gloves so you won't get any splinters in your hands. And then after that, I just used a sand board thing, whatever you call it. I just used that to sand the back of that before we started putting in the T-nuts for the climbing holes. So now I am putting in, I believe these are called T-nuts. And so I'm placing them inside the holes that my husband just drilled. It will be make a lot of noise doing that, but got to do what you got to do. And so my husband, he had a little more strength than I did when it came to that, so he ended up kind of taking over that part of the project. But yeah, you can place all of those in there. You probably have to give it a nice tap to make sure that it goes through the hole appropriately. I also want to make a note of just the size. So whenever you're drilling those holes, make sure that the screw that you're using is not larger than the T-nut. We are now going back, placing the climbing holes back onto the plywood. And as we're doing that, it comes with the screws. And so we're just putting those in. And then my husband is going to use the wrench tool that came with the climbing holes. And actually he started using the screwdriver. He's like, we can go a lot faster by using, even though it's recommended to use the wrench, he wanted to get it done quicker. So he used the drill for it. But yeah, you want to, basically drill the nails or the screws into the T-nut. And as you're doing that, the T-nut that we placed on the back of that, it actually tightens into the wood. So that's what gives it that firm hold with the climbing holes. And so that's what we're doing here. Now we are moving the plywood into the room. As you can see, we got the climbing holes there. Everything is looking pretty good. And I believe this is at the point where we noticed that the climbing holes were on in the place where the 2x4s were. And that's something that you don't want to do. because we of course have to drill holes into the 2x4s to hold this wall up. And so we had to kind of regroup and move some things around. It wasn't too bad of a change. We did it right there in that room, just moved those around. And then we attempted to put as you can see, those little extra blank holes at the bottom. That's where we had to take those climbing holes out and replace them and put them somewhere else. So now we are drilling the wall into the plywood into the 2x4, as you can see here. We're lifting up the other piece now. And we're just putting in, extra nails just to make sure that this thing is holding and will not fall on my children as they're playing. That just would not be cool. And we decided to, the climbing holes that we bought came with a climbing rope. So at first I wasn't sure about it because I just wasn't, sure if this thing was going to hold and be, I guess, strong enough for the children to climb on. But my husband was able to get it in there easily. He did use a smaller screw first to drill into it, and then of course he tightened it, and so far so good. It's still working, it's still holding up. The kids, we tell them to use it to climb with the for the rocks or for the climbing holes, not to just hang on it. So I think that helps. I really wouldn't recommend to just be hanging on the rope like that. Oh, and I wanted to test it out. As you all can see, this is our final look, and this is when we surprise the kids.
Come on in. Happy birthday. Oh my gosh, son.
What's this?
Yes.
I can climb up it?
Yes, it's your climbing wall. It's your birthday gift.
Can I climb?
Yes.
I just feel like it's gonna
Not
just
all the
tumble
way
all
ready.
down.
It's not all the way ready, but it should be sturdy enough.
It should be enough for you to at least try it.
I feel like it's just gonna tumble all
Wow.
down if I do it.
Wow.
No, it's not my
I'm
birthday.
impressed. It looks pretty high. Like if you went all the way up to the top.
Hey, it's not my system.
It's not your birthday yet, but this is part of your birthday gift, your room. I hope that this video was helpful to you if you are interested in creating a rock climbing wall in your home. This was one of our biggest projects that we've ever attempted, and I am proud of the job that we did. Everything looks great. It's still holding up. So yeah, thanks for watching.